My name is Adri, and I'm going to talk to you today about duty.
Hi, I'm Alan, and I'm going to give you some factoids from the original Van Halen demo album.
Hi, I'm Melissa, and I have a story about a 19th century healer.
What does all this have to do with our topic, voodoo? Find out in this episode of History Bluffs. Hello and welcome to another episode of History Bluffs. It's where truth is stranger than fiction. I'm your announcer, Adam, and I want to welcome to the show, it's your host, it's Chris.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of History Bluffs. It's good to be back. I've been away for a while, and it's good to have you all here joining us. And Adam, hello, Adam. How are you?
Hey, it's me. I just wanted to poke my head in and say hello. I'm your announcer voice. You may or may not see me throughout the show, but it's really Chris's show, so I'm going to hide back into the wings here again.
Well, no, that was awesome. Thanks for popping in. Adam, of course, makes this whole thing run, so we are always amazed at his technical ability and appreciative of his everything that he does to make the show tick. So welcome to another episode of History Bluffs. As Adam mentioned in the opener, our topic tonight is voodoo. And as always, we have three historians that are going to regale us with tales of voodoo-related, voodoo-inspired stories. And for tonight's episode, any one of the three of them may be bluffing. And it is our job to try to figure out, myself and the audience and the other historians, figure out who is bluffing and who might be telling the truth. Who is tonight's history bluff or bluffs with the parentheses S, because there might be more than one.
More than one bluff?
More than one bluff. Intriguing.
Oh, you know,
There might be no bluff.
There might be no bluff.
Fewer than one.
Might be. Well, that's true, because zero.
There might be
could
more
zero.
than one. Yeah.
We don't know.
Any
But this is a good time
It can
to.
happen.
We should also remark that our watchers on the internet can chime in, like our good friend Anthony Belante, who said,
Hello, Anthony. Yes,
see,
indeed.
and
Adam, let's remind ourselves and everyone else the rules for the show.
"Oh, let's do it. This is a game show. Let's take a look at the rules."
So, historian rules. As we have mentioned, tonight's topic is voodoo. So tonight's historians are inspired by the topic voodoo. And those that are telling true stories are all factual, true stories. Those that are bluffing, the premise of their story might be true, and some locations and people might be true, real locations and real people that either are living or have lived in history. But the premise of their story is a bluff. And we ask the audience for no help in debunking potential bluffs until the end of the show. That's part of it. What we're going to do is we're going to have each historian tell us stories in three separate rounds. So at the end of the third round, we'll have an opportunity for all of us to try to figure out who is tonight's bluff, or how many of our historians are bluffing. So, yes, I recently, I've been traveling a bunch lately. It's why I've been away from the show for quite a while. And I recently had a very interesting experience with someone. I won't label the generation. I'll just say someone under 25 years old. I was paying for something in the Northeast in a deli, and I paid with exact change because I just happened to be doing multiple transactions that day, and I had change in my pocket, and something came up, and I was like, oh, I have that exact change, and I paid with exact change. And the girl behind the counter literally looked at the counter as I put all the money down, looked at me, looked back, and she looked back up at me, and she goes, "Man," she goes, "you're old school." And that got me thinking, yeah, I know, right? At least she didn't say you're old. She said you're old school. It's just a polite way of saying I'm old. I know, I get it. But that made me, when we had tonight's topic of voodoo, I thought of one of a band that I enjoy and always enjoy seeing them in person, Big Bad Voodoo Daddy. And I remember being at a Big Bad Voodoo Daddy concert, and yeah, Anthony called them the final generation. Hopefully not, but we'll find out in a few years. Apparently, so at a live show of Big Bad Voodoo Daddy, they told a story of creating their latest album, and then they came back to the mic and they said, "Yes, we said album. We said we know we live in a digital world and everything's digitized, but we actually still make vinyl albums. They make a limited number of vinyl albums. In fact, actually." Where is it? On my wall here, somewhere behind me. Over there. It's out of the picture.
Careful with that needle.
I know. I have a signed album cover from the actual album from that show with the band signing it. Yeah, and but they told the story that when they grew up making they wanted to be musicians, and they said we're going to make albums, and as digital age kind of progressed and albums were left behind. And they were already a successful band. Like, you know what? We're still going to make albums. And they wanted to continue to make albums. So my question for all three historians is real quick. Just like, what's something old school that you've interacted with or been involved in your life? I'll start with you, Adrian.
I was around for phone books.
All right. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That's old.
I'm glad they're not around anymore.
That's old school. Yeah. Did you check for your own name?
Always, yeah.
Yep, always. Alan, what about you?
In my life or just recently?
Either one, whatever your choice.
Well, recently I noticed in one of my television stands, I have a VHS cassette. So
there you
I still
go.
have a few VHS floating around.
Relic.
And I think I still have a working VCR in the house, but I haven't tested it in quite some time.
Old school indeed. All right, and Melissa, what about you?
Yeah. Okay. For me, I remember I went to my dad's work one day, and this was at the time where there were definitely computers. There was definitely Microsoft Excel, and my dad's an accountant. And he made me help him with math by hand, not using any of the technology available.
Wow. Old school
That's
indeed.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, Chris, can I go?
Yeah, please, Adam, yes.
I've got a slightly weird one. It's also technology related, but not in the way you think. I have an ODBI reader for your car to read engine codes, and it's going obsolete because of all the transition to the ultra modern technology vehicles and electric vehicles. They don't have. I don't think they have a different port. I think.
Oh, weird.
I don't think they do that. Yeah, under your steering wheel on the older cars, you just plug this thing in to read the code. When your check engine light comes on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know. It's a weird thing to be dated, but you're like, wow, I guess so.
Yeah. And speaking of, dated and vehicles, our friend Anthony comments from the audience, he still uses a wheel almost every day. So that's old school as well.
Almost. Almost every day.
Wait until Big Square takes over, though, I tell you.
Yes, exactly.
They're coming.
Anthony, yes, we got you there, my buddy. All right, so I brought that up only because that's the way that the game works. We have the topic, Voodoo. In my case, it inspired me to think of Big Bad Voodoo Daddy and made me think of old school, and that's how we got those little stories. And that's the way that the game works, so the show works. So with that being said, as I mentioned earlier, we have 3 rounds. Each round will get successively shorter. We'll start with 75 seconds. This is the first round. The second round will be 60 seconds, and the final round will be 45 seconds, in which each historian will get to wrap up their story. And then at the end of the third round, we will have an opportunity to try to figure out how many, and all 3 possibly, or just one, of our historians are tonight's history bluff. So with that, Adam, can we jump right into round number 1?
Oh, let's do it. Let's go to round number 1.
All right.
Here we are. And to start the round, Chris, I'm going to throw on our amazing round tracker 10,000.
Round tracker 10,000 just appeared above my head. For those of you watching, you can see those 3 rectangles with the circle dots in them that are unfilled right now. They're all the same color. As each historian tells their story, those will be filled up with a color. And when each round gets completed, we'll have 3 completely full dots there. So that's the way this works. With that being said, I'm going to bring out our first historian, and let's start the stories and figure out who we can try to determine is the bluff. So I'm going to start with Adri. Adri, you have the floor. When you come onto the big screen there, you're going to hear a boom. You're going to see a sundial, and then you have 75 seconds to tell your opening round story.
Duty Bookman. I'm going to be telling you guys the story of Duty Bookman. He was born into poverty in 1767 in Senegambia, Africa. As a youth and a young man, he was dedicated to his religion, and he was a learned scholar of Islam and its traditions. His life took a turn while he was still pretty young, when he was captured by slavers and put on a transatlantic ship to the Caribbean, and he was sold into slavery. The first place he landed was Jamaica, and he spent some time there with his owner before he was sent to Haiti. Now, there's two stories of why he got sent to Haiti. The first one is that he was planning an uprising in Jamaica, and then he got sold to a new owner. And the second story is that he was teaching the other slaves how to read, which they obviously didn't like because it was a threat to how they operated. So either way, he was sold to actually Santo Domingo, which is in the Dominican Republic, which shares the island that Haiti is on. So the second part of the story is going to describe what he did there and why it was so important.
Okay. Thank you, Adri. Let's hear from our other historians what they think of Adri's story. Alan, I'll start with you. What's your take on Adri and the tale of Duty Bookman?
That's a good question. Well, if she's making it up, she did a terrible job making up someone's name. I'm going to say Duty, I'm going to say Book, and I'm going to say Man. That's my character, and I'm sticking with it.
Right.
Interesting.
Hopefully it wasn't just calling out things that are in the room.
Right.
Right. Yeah,
Yes,
right.
we hope
Exactly.
not.
Yeah, we hope not indeed. Melissa, what about you? What did you think of Adri's opening?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. The name also stuck out, and you said it was one of two things that happened. Either he was starting an uprising or teaching other slaves to read. So either he was throwing duty or he was fulfilling the bookman role.
There you go.
No.
There you go.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that one. That's a reach.
That is our first sad trombone of the
We're
night.
here for it. We're here
Right. We are here for it. Yes, indeed. Well, we will take those comments. We will take those questions and file them away because we have two other historians to hear from in round number one. So, Alan, I'm going to bring you out. You're going to take over the main square here. And when you hear the boom and you see the sundial, you have 60 seconds for your opening round.
All right. Well, many classic rock fans are familiar with the song Voodoo Child Slight Return by Jimi Hendrix, but fewer fans of classic rock are familiar with a different voodoo song by the band Van Halen. And one reason is Van Halen never commercially released it on an album. So, how am I familiar with this song? Well, thanks to the internet, of course. You see, Van Halen recorded a Voodoo Queen as part of the original demo recording they submitted to Warner Brothers Records, earning them a multi-record deal in the 1970s. They were convinced to make the recording of a demo by Gene Simmons from Kiss after he heard them perform live at the Whiskey A Go-Go in West Hollywood. After listening to all 29 tracks from the demo, I can tell you literally every Van Halen album commercially released with David Lee Roth on vocals features at least some DNA from this original 1977 demo. The album Fair Warning is no exception, thanks exclusively to this one song, the song Voodoo Queen.
Wow. 29 songs on a demo. Holy cow. So, all right, Melissa, what did you think of Alan's opening?
Yeah, no, it seems like, okay, it seems like it fits, but I also had a question of the 29 songs. Did you sit and listen to all of them in succession like that? No, that's what you made it sound like.
I had multiple sittings when I listened to them, yes. So not in one sitting.
Right, not in one sitting. Adri, what did you think of Alan's opening?
Well, I think it's interesting because he picked a band that Melissa and I definitely don't know. So he has the upper hand at pretty much saying anything he wants about Van Halen. So I don't know what to think right now.
All right. Well, I know Van Halen, and I will keep him in check on your behalf. So we'll see.
Thank you.
All right. Now, it is time for our third and final historian to come out with their opening salvo. So I'm going to pass the center square here over to Melissa. And Melissa, when you're here and you see the sundial and you hear the boom, you have 75 seconds for your opening round.
Okay, so this is the story of Dr. John. He was also known as Prince John. He was also known as John Montanet, and also known as Bayou John. And he was born in Senegal, and this is the early 19th century. He was claimed to be the son of a prince, and he had these scars that started at his temple and worked all their way down this cheek. He was kidnapped, and he was sold into the slave trade. He made his way over to Cuba, and he worked as a slave and ultimately earned his freedom. And he was able to make money. He worked on a ship as a cook. And that's kind of like the skill set that he ended up bringing to the table later in life as well. So after he was working on the ship for a while, he made his way over to New Orleans. And in New Orleans, originally his plan was to be a cotton roller. And he got really plugged in with the community of Voodoo, which had already existed in New Orleans at this time. It had been around since the 1700s, but he was one of the people who basically made it a much more vibrant community and more popular community to New Orleans culture at the time. You'll have to wait for part 2 for what happens next.
Okay. Adri, what did you think of Dr. John, the story of Dr. John, and coming from Cuba? He was a cook on a ship and ended up in New Orleans.
Yeah, very interesting. Very similar to my story. Also kind of taking place in Senegal. Yeah, I find it interesting. Like I've never heard of a slave finding freedom and working on a ship. So that's definitely interesting. But I like that he ends up in New Orleans, which we all know is a major historical part of Voodoo. So I'm interested to see in part 2.
Okay. And Alan, what do you think?
So he winds up in New Orleans. I'm wondering if the singer Dr. John wound up in New Orleans as well. Is it the same guy? I don't know. But then again, I guess the years wouldn't add up exactly. He only passed away, within the last 5 years?
Right.
He lasted. He had staying power. I don't know.
Maybe it was Voodoo. He kept it alive.
Yeah.
That would be staying power indeed. All right. Well, Adam, if my math is correct, and it is, we have 3 full dots in round number 1.
Yes,
that
we do.
means we're going to round number 2.
Let's go. Welcome to round number 2.
Welcome back to round number 2, ladies and gentlemen. So in the first
We got a
round,
comment.
we have a comment.
We do have a comment. Let's see who's talking. Oh, we go. Oh, yeah, actually the right place,
Dr.
wrong
John,
time.
he was at the right place at the right time. Yes, indeed.
Right
All
place,
right.
wrong time, or the
right place, wrong time is the actual
right
song.
time. Yeah, okay. There's a lot of lyrics to catch up on.
Right place, wrong time is the actual lyrics. That's correct.
If these ladies don't know Van Halen, they sure don't know Dr. John.
That's right.
Not at all.
That's right.
I'm just smiling politely.
I am aware that this is a person.
He was a person, yes.
Who made music?
I thought at first you were talking about Dr. Dre, and I told him.
also a person. And I
person.
challenge anyone either watching the show or listening to the show to on a podcast to listen to Dr. Dre, Dr. John, Big Bad Voodoo Daddy, or Van Halen, and keep your feet on the ground. It's impossible to do with any of the 4.
You left out Dr. Teeth.
Oh.
Well, no one's
favorite
mentioned Dr.
Muppet.
Teeth yet. Yeah.
Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem? Come on.
Yes.
Phenomenon. Okay, yes, I will. All right.
Tell you what.
All right, so we left off. We had heard the opening salvos of the story of Duty Bookman. Ended up in Haiti. Van Halen and their 29 songs on their initial demo in 1977. And then Dr. John, who made his way from being a slave in Cuba to a cook on a ship and ended up in New Orleans. So we now come to round number 2, where we have to find out some more details for each of our stories. So we're going to go back to Adri. And Adri,
right.
In this round, we are reducing the time down to 60 seconds for this round. The floor is yours.
So when Duty Bookman gets to the island that's we know now as Haiti and the Dominican Republic, He has a spiritual awakening and abandons his Islamic faith and converts to practicing voodoo. Obviously, when he does that, he's now in Haiti. He became a respected voodoo priest, and Bookman was believed to be a very high intellect, like going back to when he was still in Africa, and was a dedicated teacher of teaching his fellow slaves how to read. As a result, he was marked as a threat and was made a slave driver and then later a coach driver. And his last name, Bookman, was given to him by the French as a play on what the English would call him, which was Bookman. As a priest, he performed many ceremonies, and one of the most significant events actually led up to what ignited the revolution, which was a ceremony he led with another priestess.
Okay. She brought in the revolution in this part of the story. Alan, what did you think of that?
That's the English best they could come up with was Bookman. Bookman, the guy holding the book.
The book guy.
Who? There's the one guy on this whole freaking island that's holding a book. That's you.
Nobody. Yeah. You put that book down. You're not Bookman.
Melissa, what did you think?
Yeah, I want a movie about Duty Bookman. Like, I feel like that would sell well. The name, it pops. The uprising, it's like
top notch.
It sells itself.
Top notch.
It might sell itself indeed.
It would.
And
Duty Revolution.
Duty Revolution, and you had someone sitting there, duty. All right, Alan, let's get you back on stage here, and you're going to have your 60 seconds for the reduced second round for moving forward your story.
All right. So the opening track of Fair Warning, Van Halen's fourth album, was titled Mean Streets, and it uses the same riff that is repeated throughout the demo song Voodoo Queen. The lyrics on Mean Streets are completely changed from Voodoo Queen's lyrics, and I have some samples of Voodoo Queen's lyrics, which I'm going to go right to the chorus, which is, I want a jungle steamin', I heard the drums a-beatin', not a thing you could believe, I saw her face keep shining, her flashing eyes were blinding, oh yeah, Voodoo Queen. It sounds a lot better when Michael Anthony is harmonizing it, but that's a nice sample of the song for you. And so from there, I just wanted to let you know that outside of Voodoo Queen, almost all of Van Halen's debut album has its tracks featured on the demo.
Okay. Due to budgetary constraints here at History Plus, we can't get Michael Anthony to harmonize on that, but we do have a track of Anthony Michael Hall humming it, so that we'll play that later on.
We'll get to that, I guess.
Melissa, what do you think?
I think Alan earned some points for singing or half singing. There you go, for half singing this song. So that makes me think a little bit about.
Okay.
That was not even my full effort. Thank you.
That was not his full effort.
Surely a bluffer wouldn't hum.
Oh,
sing.
Maybe
impossible.
Adri, what'd you think?
Well, I think I have no reference to Van Halen, so Alan very well could have written that stanza like before the show. So I just want to make sure, like, your story is about the debut album that Van Halen did, but then it was released on the fourth album. Am I getting the story right?
So this is Voodoo Queen is an unreleased song that is only recorded on their demo album that was never commercially released. So that predates their original commercially released album.
So this was never on an album. This was never.
It was never on a commercially released that you could be available for purchase. No, it was just
so there is no
on their
proof
demo
that they ever had a song called Voodoo Queen.
I told you the internet is how I found out this song exists, and it's how I'm able to sing it for you. It is recorded. It just wasn't released by Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Got it.
And Adri, just for the record, several members of Van Halen are still alive, so you can always ask them.
I will.
Yeah, we got a comment from the peanut gallery here. Just a little David Lee Roth, a few woos
All
or
right.
something.
Anthony.
Yeah. You gotta show
Humble bibbly zibbly bibbly, humble bibbly zibbly bop.
Wow.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah, all right.
That's a much better David Lee Roth impression. Fantastic.
That's more than I
All right,
expected.
Melissa, it is time for
impressed.
Melissa to come out and have her second round. Melissa, you have 60 seconds to move your story forward, and the time is yours.
Okay, so eventually Dr. John earns enough money. He buys some land and builds a house. He is the go-to medicine man in New Orleans. So men, women, black and white, pretty much everybody's just going to Dr. John. And because he was the go-to healer in town, he could charge the prices he wanted for his healings, which he used herbs for, which was a really, really in need service at the time because yellow fever was coming about. It was a big epidemic. And actually, 2 of his 15 children ended up getting yellow fever. So he had extra kind of motivation to help the community in this way. He also used his cooking skills going back, where he fed the community jambalaya, and he used that as a way to connect with the community. And he had a very famous student named Marie Laveau, who ended up being a really big voodoo queen. You'll have to wait for part 3.
All right, let's hear some comments. Adri, what do you think of Melissa's story and bring out the voodoo queen, Marie Laveau?
She's got a lot of details there. She did a lot of the, typical Melissa tactics of throwing a lot of details and then adding an essential character with a last name that matches everything that we know about New Orleans. So I don't know. I'm not ready to call it yet, but I'm teetering on the edge of we have a bluff here.
Oh. Our first semi-accusation of the night. All right.
Yes.
Semi.
I will give her props, though. In my book, you can't go wrong ever with jambalaya. So
That's true. I'll give points for that.
yes.
Yeah.
Alan, what do you think?
So, it was fine up until a point. This is Dr. John from Cuba. This is all possible. New Orleans medicine man. He's a cook of jambalaya. Jambalaya is from New Orleans. But she threw in Voodoo Queen at the very end. That's my whole topic.
Stolen.
We have our second semi-accusation of the evening here. We're on a tear, but we're also at a spot where the second round, all the dots are full. That means one thing, Adam. We're going to round 3.
Let's go, Chris. Round number 3. Round number 3, where it just smells roundier.
It smells roundier indeed, and this is
Don't know what that means.
This is the final round. So when we last left off in round number 2, we had the spiritual awakening of Doody Bookman. We had the 4th album with the direct line to the 29 songs on one song in particular on the demo album, and we also had a David Lee Roth impression. And then we had the medicine man, the healer, cooking jambalaya for everyone as he battled yellow fever and introduced the Voodoo Queen. Now we come to round number 3.
That's true. And Chris, I'll tell you that we also had in round number 2 the multi bluff.
That's right. Indeed. Accusations galore. So now we're at round 3. That means that we are at the final round. The time has once again been reduced. Yes, I know. 45. And I can't tell if that's joyful or
I'm not sure. It
woeful.
sounds sarcastic. It sounds sarcastic to me.
It does. So we have 45 seconds now in this final round, and each of the historians are going to wrap up their stories in these 45 seconds, and then we come to the point of the show where we will determine if we believe stories or we think they're bluffing. So let's get to it. Adri, come on out. You have 45 seconds to wrap up your story, and the floor is yours.
Okay, so Doody Bookman, he starts performing these ceremonies, voodoo ceremonies, religious ceremonies, and he starts gaining a following, and people started basically looking up to him and looking for his leadership, and he basically inspired the slaves of Haiti to revolt against their slave masters, which eventually ended up destroying basically everything on the island. And it led to their freedom, so to speak, although Haiti was left in tatters, and even today it's really struggling with the same things that happened a couple hundred years ago. Duty, unfortunately, did not make it past that revolution. He was beheaded and never saw a free Haiti, but he was the one that inspired it.
Okay. Just some quick comments. We'll have another round come back and hear your actual accusations, but some quick comments on the concluding round of Adri's story. Alan, what do you think?
What again? Remind me, Adri. What did Duty Bookman do to inspire a free Haiti?
When he was doing the ceremonies, he would gain a following and basically talk to his fellow slaves and like inspire a revolt.
Okay. It sounds possible, although it could easily be a true story with a completely made-up name. Duty Bookman might not have existed. Someone else may have inspired the Haitian Revolution. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Okay, and Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a movie. I want it to be a movie. The movie of Duty. The Duty movie. Like Rudy.
We even have the name of the movie.
The name of the movie, indeed, The Spiritual Awakening of Duty Bookman.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I want.
The historical consultant, Anthony Bellanti. All right, we have our first conclusion of the stories. Now we're going to go to our second historian. Alan, come on out. You have 45 seconds to give us the conclusion of the Van Halen story that you are telling.
Okay, outside of Voodoo Queen, almost all of Van Halen's debut album was on the original demo. I said that earlier, but Van Halen 2's song, Somebody Get Me a Doctor and DOA are on there. In a Simple Rhyme is on Women and Children First, as well as the demo. And Diver Down's Happy Trails are also found on the demo. And 1984's House of Pain is on this demo, and it turned out that song turned out to be one of Gene Simmons' favorite demos on the track. And many of the remaining demo tracks that were on that original demo were repurposed when David Lee Roth returned to Van Halen for their 2012 album, A Different Kind of Truth.
Okay. Melissa, what do you think of Alan's conclusion of the story of Van Halen's demo album and the trails it left?
Well, I'm just going to burn my one Van Halen reference now.
Uh-oh.
And I'm worried that he might be making too far of a jump.
There it is. Yeah.
There's the one
right.
I got.
All right.
We got one
If
in.
you know one
We
Van
definitely got
Halen
one
song,
in.
it's that one. Yes.
Well, I'll tell you, you just can't go higher than that.
In your
You're-
dreams.
Okay, that's
AG, what do you think?
The only Van Halen reference I have is, I think, they have an album where the guy is lifting a globe over his head, right?
yes,
5150.
that's the
That's
one.
all I know. My brothers
Okay.
were fans. That's it.
Okay.
Anyways, so I'm confused again. Why is Gene Simmons in the story? Wasn't he a part of Kiss?
He was.
He was part of Kiss. He was the one that he heard
Was
their he heard their demo. I'm sorry, he heard them at Whiskey A Go Go in LA, playing live.
Okay.
And he suggested that they make a demo to try to get a record.
Got
See,
it.
Chris
A record
was
deal.
paying attention because I did cover that in
was
round
paying
one.
attention as well. I did not pick that up. I
Okay,
do
that's fair.
apologize.
Okay.
That's all I had. I just wanted that clarification.
Anthony has a different
right.
name for the band now.
Might have been Van Simmons, yes. Or maybe saying Gene Simmons might have been Van Simmons. All right. Well, we have heard the conclusion from Adrian. We've heard the conclusion from Alan. Let us go to Melissa for the conclusion on the Dr. John story. Melissa, come into the main square and take it away.
All right. So, Dr. John sadly lost his fortune towards the end of his life. So, because of his upbringing, he never actually learned how to read or write. He was taught some basic things about how to do signatures, and he actually got conned out of all of his property, which he, not believing or trusting in banks, he had stored all of his fortune and buried it underneath his property. So there's a legend in New Orleans that there's still treasure hidden near where he used to own. And he ended up trying to regain some of that fortune. He still tried to help the community, but he actually outlived the queen of voodoo herself, Marie Laveau, and he was the last of the voodoos.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to try to determine which of our historians are bluffing. So
Wow, it's that time.
it is that time, Adam. So we have the story from Adri of Duty Bookman, perhaps the original influencer. We'll see. We have the story from Alan of the demo album Voodoo Queen by Van Halen. Is he telling us the truth, or is he just playing a gigolo tonight? We're not sure. And then Adri, Melissa, we have Melissa and the story of Dr. John and his trek from Cuba, ended up in New Orleans, and was he the last of the Voodoos? We shall now find out from the audience as they're going to make some comments who they think might be bluffing. Could be one, could be two, could be all three of them. Let's hear from the audience, and then let's hear now from each historian. Adri, tell us what you think of Alan and Melissa's stories. Do you believe either of them, or do you think they're both bluffing?
I think that they are both bluffing.
Ooh.
Wow.
Okay. 2 bluffs for the price of 1. Alan, what do you think?
This is fascinating. I actually get 4 options. I could vote Melissa or Adri or both or neither.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that Dr. John is too mundane a name to be made up. And I think Duty Bookman is era appropriate. There were slaves in Jamaica and Haiti, and there was voodoo going on. So I'm going to say they're both telling the truth.
2 truths.
Ooh.
Okay.
All right, we have 2 truths and 2 bluffs. Melissa, time to break the tie. What do you think about what do you think about the stories?
Okay, so I think that Adri is telling the truth. I think that name is almost too fantastical to make up. I kind of agree. So I think Adri's telling the truth. But I think that Alan was throwing in so many songs and singers and just peppering them in so much that it felt a little out of sync. So I think he's bluffing.
Okay. All right. And you know what, Adam? It's a little different than the norm, but I'm going to make an accusation myself because I have no idea of which of these 3 might be.
You're welcome to. Let's hear your thoughts.
And before I do, Anthony Galante just said that he thinks all 3 of them are lying, but they did put a spell on him. So there it is.
He believes us all, so I'm not sure what his vote is there. Does he believe us all, or are we liars? I don't know.
I'm going to say this. I'm going to say Adri and Alan are telling the truth, and I think Melissa's bluffing because I don't know why. Dr. John and New Orleans, and she got jambalaya in there, which is fantastic. But I'm gonna just roll those dice, and I'm gonna say historian bluff.
Wow.
Let's find out.
All right. There we go. Okay, are we ready? Or is it time for the big reveal?
It is.
Do it.
Oh, here we go. This is the moment everybody's been waiting for, especially the historians. Was your bluff for this show about voodoo, was it Adri? Was your bluff Alan? Or was your bluff Melissa? Or was it all of them? Or none of them? I and I alone know. Get ready for the big reveal. The bluff was none of them.
Whoa!
We pulled a sneaky on you and taught you real things.
How dare we?
But that means I win. I voted for no one.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. Alan wins. Hey, way to go, Alan.
Hey.
Congratulations.
Yay, Alan.
All
Congrats.
right. Well,
that is a never before happened on History Buffs.
that's a first indeed. Wow. All right. And it makes me wonder if Dr. John the musician was named after Dr. John the healer.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And who named Dr. Teeth?
And Dr. Keith. That's right.
Jim Henson.
That's true.
Super interesting and fun show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. First time we tried this where no one knew who was bluffing or who, except for Alan. I'm sorry, Adam. And if we had no bluffs or all three bluffs. So just something we played with for the format. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll continue to tweak the show as we go forward. Thank you to our lovely, lovely studio audience, Anthony Belante and others. Thank you for those listening to you on the podcast. Thank you to our historians, Adri, Alan, and Melissa. Give them all a round of applause, please. And once again, give it up for our tech and host extraordinaire, Adam Bellis. Make the show go around the world. And Adam, I'm going to hand it off to you. Let's take it away.
Let's do it. That's been History Bluffs. We're here every week giving you fact and fiction. Tune in, YouTube, Twitch, and where you get your podcasts.